Yes, we are fully aware that the Pac-12 is dead and gone. That's okay, because we are about the historical as well here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by. We apologize for the technical issues that you did not see, but we're certainly here, and we were trying to deal with and trying to make this a better show, but we're not able to work through those. But we will make it a great show nonetheless. Much like my rankings, they will be exceptional, but not perfect. Not perfect. The rankings aren't perfect. Exceptional, yes. And I have put this challenge out to everyone here who has watched the various program rankings videos, that if you have come across a better, more comprehensive, more accurate, more exhaustive ranking system, please send it my way. I would love to see it. We have included roughly 15 components into ranking the programs. And so what we did last week is, please check out the videos, is we released on the main channel. So some of you are watching us on the USC channel. You might be on the Oregon channel. You might be on the main channel. On the main national channel, we release videos for the Pac-12, the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10. And with our program rankings, all-time program rankings, and we gave it a point system, and you will see the points totals on those videos. We did not explain the point system. We will do that today and throughout the week. This is just the first edition of our live streams, and we will take your comments and questions. We will take your calls as well. The link is in the chat, so give me a call if you have any comments or questions concerning the system or concerning Pac-12 program rankings. This is all time. So the game in 1901 counts just as much as the game in 1923, even though we should put things into context. So numbers are great. Numbers are phenomenal. Numbers do not lie unless the person presenting them is a liar. If they are someone who is just ignorant, naive, or have an agenda, then the numbers can be manipulated. Absolutely. Numbers can be manipulated, but the numbers themselves cannot lie. If I send you a list of conference championships, then as long as that there are no typos or anything like that, or no misinformation there, then that list is accurate. That was taken from an official source, and that's the list of conference championships. Now, that obviously involves all sort of narrative and storylines and context and explanation. So the numbers don't tell the entire story by any stretch, but they are a great foundation. And let's get to the Pac-12 numbers here. And so I'm going to try two different modes of looking at the numbers before we go through our point system. And again, I appreciate your calls, your questions, your comments. I will get to many comments and questions, but obviously the ones that are highlighted with the super chats, I will get to them for sure. And if you give me a call, we are here to take your call. The link is in the comments section. All right, so let's get to it. So I've got two different ways to present this. One would be the spreadsheet that I was working from, and then the other would be just rolling the video with all the graphics that are there as well. So we will do our best to blow this spreadsheet up and see if you can follow along with this. And I will explain what all these numbers mean. All right. Spoiler alert. USC is the best program in the history of the Pac-12. Spoiler alert. It's not close. It's not debatable. It's not arguable. Once we get to the Big 10, it's arguable. Once we get to the SEC, it's more arguable. It's kind of difficult to argue, but it's more arguable. In the Big 12, it is pretty clear, but maybe you could make a stretch and an argument. In the ACC, it's very arguable. And again, the Big 10, there are two to be argued. In this conference, forget it. USC fans, beat your chest, go crazy, throw a party. You're number one. There's no doubt. And then when we get to the Big Ten rankings, and again, check out the videos because there's going to be better explanation in the videos. Check out the videos of all the conferences. We included the Pac 12 schools in the Big Ten video. You say, why would you do that, Mark? They were not members of the Big Ten. This is not necessarily to just flat out compare them against the Big Ten schools and act like they compile these numbers in the Big Ten, but it is to show what type of programs and what type of histories the Big Ten is inheriting. Okay. All right. So the first number you see there on the left, next to USC in particular, and Washington at 620 and on down the line. And these lists are not going to be perfect top to bottom. So meaning they are not going to be in order because each list is different. Therefore, they cannot all be top to bottom. So that's what kind of threw me off in a sense and does every year when I cut the videos because I'm trying to talk and sort through in my head and visually these lists to go from top to bottom. So we do go from top to bottom on the first list because that's the way I organized it, because I believe that the most important aspect of all of this is winning football games. So your winning percentage, not just how many games did you win, but your winning percentage, because these teams started playing football at different times. So the winning percentage is first and foremost in my mind. And then again, there's context. So USC's got the best winning percentage in the history of the Pac-12 at 695. That is not a conference winning percentage. That's an all-time program winning percentage of all games. It would be interesting to get into the conference winning percentage. So that is something that we could add in the future if those numbers are readily available. That would be good to get into that percentage. I'm actually going to jot that down because I've thought of that in the past, and that could be something we could add next season. All right, Washington's at 620. Those are the only two schools in the conference with over 60% winning percentages all time. Arizona State, you have to understand that the caveat there is that Arizona State was not part of the conference prior to 1978. So the last 45 seasons, yes, their numbers are in line with and can be directly comparable to the rest of the teams. But for Arizona State and Arizona, they were not members of the conference prior to 1978. Therefore, it was easier for them to compile wins and winning percentage prior to 1978. Utah, same thing. And for Utah, their winning percentage is bolstered even more than Arizona State and Arizona because they were playing group of five football all the way up until 2012. So the Utah winning percentage, for example, again, here are the numbers, but to put it into context, I would consider UCLA, Oregon, Stanford, those three in particular, to have better all-time programs than Utah. Their winning percentage is not as good, but they were playing big-time college football for all these generations. Utah was not. So there you also see that just about everyone in the Power Five has a plus 50% winning percentage. Well, how can that be? Because it only makes sense if we looked at the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and their all-time winning percentages, there would roughly be half over 50% and half under 50% because it only makes sense. Everybody wins each game and loses each game. The difference here is, of course, group of five and FCS games. So the Power Five beats up on the group of five at plus 85% of the time and beats up on FCS teams plus 95% of the time. Therefore, even bad programs in the Power Five have been able to boost their records, inflate their records by playing group of five and FCS teams and bolstering their all-time records that way. So there are far less teams with under 50% winning percentages. And in the Pac-12, that's simply just Washington State and Oregon State out of the 12. So 10 teams well above 50%. Cal would be the worst at 547. And Washington State and Oregon State, two of the worst programs in the history of college football. Sorry, Oregon State, Beaver, and Wazoo fans, two of the worst programs in the history of college football, but there they are. The next number you see next to USC 1390 and on down the road, that is a point system total that I'll get to in just a second. So the number next to that, 851 for USC and 418 for Washington. And UCLA is actually number 2 in the Pac-12 at 498. That is an AP poll points total. So there's a point system in the AP poll. Now, if you watch me on a regular basis, you know I am highly critical of the AP poll. But those are specific polls. Those are specific rankings for those particular weeks and maybe at the end of the season. So, for example, this comes to mind. Minnesota just recently finished 9-4 back-to-back seasons. 9-4 as a Big Ten team. And based on their resume, their credentials, the wins and losses, and the point differential, all of that, Minnesota had just as good a resume as some of the teams in the top 25, but they were not ranked at the end of the year, despite being 9-4 as a Big Ten team. Now, their AP polls points for those two seasons, 0. They could have been 0-12 both years, and it would have been 0. So we're putting Minnesota at 9-4, 9-4 on the same plane as a team that went 0-12, 0-12. Well, that's not fair. That's not accurate. So this is not a perfect, infallible system. So there are flaws in the AP poll for sure. But over the course of 1936 to 2023, that's 87 years of football. These are pretty valid. If you finish number 5 in the country, you're probably roughly the number 5, 5th best team in the country. You might be the 7th best or the 9th best or the 3rd best, but you are in that range. There's little question about that. So USC, by far the most dominant team in the AP poll during this era of the AP poll, and UCLA is number 2, and Washington is number 3. And then there's a smattering of teams that have had success in small doses at different times, like Stanford and Colorado. Of course, for Stanford, they had some really good teams in the early 70s. They had a Ty Willingham team that went to the Rose Bowl in 1999. Then, of course, they had their best success under Jim Harbaugh and David Shaw over the course of 5 or 6 seasons from roughly 2009 to 2017. So for about 8 years, Stanford was really good, but outside that, so all of them have pockets of strength. And then, of course, Oregon is a aberration in that they are rising up the charts. They are adding numbers by the year. If you go back to 2000, if we did this since 2008, then we're going to see a much different Oregon showing. We're going to see them arguably the best in the conference since 2008. Actually, I do believe Oregon would be the best program in the conference since 2007, 2008 range. But if we were doing this back in 2007, then they would have been far down the list. Now let's go. I'm going to spin your head a little bit here because we're going to spin all the way down here. And so let's look at this. So what's all that? So what all that is, and unfortunately you can't see the last column. Let's see if we can bring this back just a bit. There we go. So what is all that business? Okay. What that is if you go to the USC column, first and foremost, the record right next to their name. That is their record since 1970. So USC all time has a 695 winning percentage. Whatever that winning percentage is at 461, 194, and 12 ties. And I explain all that and post the winning percentage. It's in the video. So please check out the Pac-12 video. It's over on the main channel. And as soon as we get done with this live stream, I will post the links to all the different videos that you can track those. So again, I see that the winning percentage is not reflected there, but believe me, we posted in the video. So USC is clearly number one since 1970. And then Washington, Arizona State, again, theirs is a bit compromised since they did not play in the Pac until 1978. UCLA's there, Oregon's there. And then the next column is since 2001, the 21st century. So that's a heck of a race between USC and Oregon. If you look at that, you've got Oregon at 209 wins. Let's see if we can do this. Can we do let's do a little drop here. So we've got this Oregon USC comparison. Who else would be in there? Utah. Let's jump Utah up here. All right, let's do this. This makes it easier to compare the top teams. So there we see in the second column, that's since 2001. And USC's got a slim lead over Oregon by just a game and a half. And Utah's right there. But again, they were not playing in the Power Five until 2012. And really, you just see a stretch of teams like UCLA and Stanford, of course, have had their ups and downs, in Arizona State as well. And Washington, despite being a college football playoff team twice and also going to a Rose Bowl and a Fiesta Bowl during the playoff era, obviously had just horrible seasons pre-Sark. And so that weights down their record. Then you've got a lot of teams that have been relatively bad, especially Colorado has been awful. All right. The next column, the third column, that's each individual program's records since the college football playoff era started in 2014. So in that, Oregon's number one with a slim lead over Washington and Utah. So you've got Oregon with 90 wins since the playoff era started. So we see Exploring with Ben's here. He can pound his chest and go crazy. Oregon's got the best record in the Pac-12 during the playoff era. And then, again, Washington and Utah are right there. And then USC's at number 4 at 79 and 45. And then what are these crazy numbers with the dashes to the far right? So once I went through the AP poll points, I was also curious just to know how many times have these programs finished in the top 25, or what was once the top 20, and then go to the top 10 and then the top 5. And before I go into all of that, Moose is just having fun with everyone here. Does the Pac even have a conference anymore? No, they don't. So this is the perfect time to wrap up the conference history, actually, is the best thing that we're doing here. All right. So on the far right, you have the number of times that school is finished ranked. We'll just say the top 25. And then the second number is the top 10, and the third number is the top 5. And I apologize because some of the columns with Utah and Washington State, it was reading it like a date and throwing it off to the side. But so you see USC, for example, 52 times ranked in the top 25. Number 2 is UCLA, actually, with 32. And then top 10 finishes, you've got USC at 28. And then there's a drop off to UCLA with 17. And then top 5 finishes. You've got Utah with 2002 top 5 finishes. No, they've got 2. USC with 19 and UCLA with 8. Washington 7, Oregon 6. That's finishes in the top 5 in the country. And looking for your comments and questions, don't see anything there. All right, so let's keep going. So we'll back down to here. And again, I apologize, we've got no headings on these. I should have put those. I should have, because I've got all of college football here, so I've got a list of headings at the top, but I should have interspersed them. I'll do that for the next show. We've got the ACC show coming up at 6 Eastern. You can catch that here on the national channel, Miami, Clemson, or Florida State. All right, so let's see what happened to, I had a column here. Let's add this up real quick. So actually, these are bowl wins. 35, 17, 20, 17. So the column right there highlighted are bowl wins all time. USC's number 1, Washington's number 2, and then we've got a tie between Oregon and Utah and UCLA with 17 bowl victories. So those are bowl wins right there. And then over here we've got major bowl wins. And look at this route. Look at that. Nobody in the Pac-12 has more than 9 major bowl wins. Nobody is in double digits except Southern Cal, 27. Then it goes to Washington, 9, UCLA, Stanford, 8. Arizona has yet to ever win a major bowl game. They played in the Fiesta Bowl about 10 years ago against Boise State, 2014. They got annihilated. And that, I believe, is their only major bowl appearance. So USC wins this one easily with 27 major bowl wins. Now we get to, what's that there? That is, dun, 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 dun. Oh, okay. Points, bowls, dun, dun, dun. Okay. Conference championships. And again, sorry you can't see the team at this point, but trust me, that's USC with 37. Now, what gets to be difficult here is that you got teams in other conferences. So we want to honor their program history with winning conference championships, but they did not win Pac-12 championships. So in terms of Pac-12 championships, we'll get to those numbers in just a second. These are total conference championships. And again, you've got USC with 37, and then the 28 and 26 numbers are Utah and Colorado. But those are not in the Pac-12. Colorado, 0 in the Pac-12. Utah with 2 in the Pac-12. All right. This is when all the teams joined the conference. So for some reason, a couple people picked on me for this, and I think that this is very reasonable and makes total sense that you have to put some kind of context in how long these teams have been in the conference. It's kind of difficult for Utah to have as many conference championships as USC. They've been in the conference since 2011. So it's kind of difficult. 13 years. So let's put into context how long these schools have been in the conference. So there were basically 3 different waves. There was the original wave The Pac-12 started or the Pac conference started, whatever they called it at the time, in 1915. So you see all those teams that joined in 1915. There you see a smattering of 1918, and then USC in 1922, 1917. So by 1922, you had the Pac-8. And then we skip forward to 1978 with Arizona State. They're added in 78, and then Colorado and Utah in 2011. So this next column, you've got the number of conference championships in the Pac-12 versus the number of years in which they participated in the Pac-12. So USC wins this one going away with 37 conference championships in 102 years. And UCLA's close, Washington's close with their 18 and 17 conference championships. The Huskies just won the last Pac-12 championship, so they won their 18th and broke the tie with UCLA for number 2. All right, so we have that there, and then a bunch of percentages that we don't need to see. All right, now we've got national championships. And USC has 11. Now, let's get to the national championship conversation. This is what we're doing with national championships. This is what we're doing with national championships, folks. All right. You've got your AP national championships. So we could just say, okay, we're allowing the AP to tell us what this is, start to finish. It's all the AP. But that only goes back to 1936. And then you've got the claimed national championships by these schools claiming national championships. You also have all these other polls and services. There's a litany of them. There are about 17 or 18 that are considered somewhat legit. Okay. The way we're going to do it eventually is have our own national championship list here at the Voice of College Football. So if you were around last off season, we made it all the way back to 1970, and we reviewed every year and justified national championships. We either validated them or we invalidated them, or we added to them. In most cases, we added other teams that had a claim to the national championships. So USC's got 11. That may be revised. I do know that we are adding a national championship for USC in 1978. They should have a national championship. I don't know if they're claiming that, but they finished with the same record as Alabama and beat Alabama by 2 scores on the road. They should have a share of the national title, if not the entire national title. So again, we have to sort through all of that, but for right now, we'll go with what Winsipedia has, and I've made a few slight adjustments. All right. All right. Yes, Ralph, I do recall that Fiesta Bowl in 1993 with, so I'm just talking off the top of my head, but yeah, so Arizona's got that other Fiesta Bowl win. Now, in terms of Arizona and that being a Fiesta Bowl, that 1979 Fiesta Bowl. See, this is where the major bowls become a little tricky, because was the Fiesta Bowl a major bowl as soon as it started? No. Was the Cotton Bowl a major bowl for about a 10 or 15 year stretch in the 90s and 2000s when the Southwest Conference folded? No. So that we will make judgment calls on. All right, this list right here are NFL draft selections. And again, can we see a team? No, we can't. So that's probably too small for anyone to read. So trust me, that's USC with more NFL draft selections than anybody outside of Notre Dame. So USC is number one by far. And again, it's a UCLA Washington fight for number two. And then everybody else. Colorado does pretty well in the NFL draft. So forget those other numbers. We will explain those later. And then we've got USC with 86 number one picks. That's number two all time. So that's the far left number. And then you see the team on the far right. And in terms of first round picks, it's still surprising that Oregon's that far behind. Again, USC at 86. And really, with Oregon's run that they've made here in the last 15 years, they haven't really had that many high draft picks. Regardless, UCLA is number two at 37. And there you see Washington, you see Arizona State, Stanford, Colorado, all bunched up in there. Cal is actually number three in the conference. Cal's had a strong history of producing NFL players despite bad records. So that's that number. Forget the next number. And then if you're looking at the far left, number 84 for USC, those are consensus All-Americans. Consensus All-Americans. USC with a huge lead. UCLA is number two in the conference, and they've got half as many, 42 to USC's 84. And then Stanford and Colorado are pretty respectable, and Cal as well, all over 30 consensus All-Americans. Oregon only has 11. That's crazy to me. All right, that number 8, USC crushes everyone. Of course, Reggie Bush got his Heisman back a few weeks ago, so that's number 8. USC's number 1 all-time in Heismans, and all those other schools have 1. Gary Beeben at UCLA, Marcus Mariota at Oregon, Rashaan Salam at Colorado, Jim Plunkett at Stanford. There you go. And then we've got that last number, the row to the left there that says USC 9. And this is a surprisingly low number. These are all the other major awards. The Mackey, the Biletnikoff, the Lombardi, the Remington, the Nagurski, the Budkiss, the Doak Walker, the Guy, the Groza, the Thorpe, all of them put together because we want to honor and give just as much weight to every position award as we do the Heisman. And USC's number 1 with 9. Arizona's got 8. And so, bingo, those are all the numbers. And when you put it all together, again, I'm going to go back through national championships and a few other things. So these numbers could be off by 1 or 3 or even 8. But there's not really any question. So USC is number 1. And I would like to order that in order, but that's kind of difficult to do right this second. But you see UCLA's at number 2 at 1940. Sorry. Washington edges UCLA 1949 to 1942 in total points. But USC's got a huge lead, and they are forever the dominant school in Pac-12 football. And on down the line. Of course, Oregon has made a great run in the last 15 years again with 20 top 25 finishes, 10 in the top 10, 6 in the top 5. And man, you got to think out of those 10 finishes in the top 10, shoot, they've got to have 7 or 8 of those in the last 15 years. So those are the numbers. And just to kind of confirm what we're doing and so forth, I'm going to let the video from the Pac-12 roll, and you'll see lists that are going to be a little bit easier to follow. You're going to see lists of the various categories. So what we are going to go to next would be, let me explain the point system. So you saw the points. Let me explain the point system, and you're going to see the points here in just a couple minutes again. So again, the link is in the comment section. If you've got something to talk about concerning this specific list, then please go with it. Ralph, thank you for going through my numbers or by my numbers. I appreciate that. And again, this is just like I explained at the end of the Big Ten video, but still people went crazy. And we had a certain team at number 1, certain team at number 2, certain team at number 3. And I got a lot of hate mail about that, but I clearly stated on there, that doesn't mean that the team that finished number 1 is definitely the greatest program in the history of this conference, and the team that finished number 2. Now, in this instance, it's pretty clear. USC was number 1 in every category. So understand that even though we showed you post 1970, 21st century, and playoff era numbers, I did not include that in the point system. So there is no recency bias at all with these. I just showed those to show everyone, but those are not included in the point system. Those are just there. And those AP rankings of top 25, top 10, top 5, they're basically assumed, and they are factored into the AP poll points. So those are not tabulated either. I just wanted to show that. So it's, to me, it's an easier way to get a grasp on it than just saying USC's got 851 AP poll points. Well, it's easier to grasp when you see that they finished in the top 25 52 times and 28 times in the top 10. So that is the deal there. So in terms of the point system, and I should have built a graphic is what I should have done, but we will explain it. And we're going to do this a bunch of other times. We're coming back at 6 p.m. Eastern time to do the ACC. We're doing the SEC on Tuesday. We're doing the Big 12 on Wednesday, the Big 10 on Thursday, and then we're doing a national rankings with everybody put together on Friday. So you'll see these numbers again and again. We're going to go through national championships at some point when I find some time this week that I'm not putting together furniture. And we're going to revise the national championship statistics, which, again, is this going to move the needle at all? Not really. But we want to be accurate. So if you see any issues like Ralph with the Fiesta Bowl, certainly point those out to me, because those are helpful, because I'm a one-man database and I'm pulling from Wikipedia and from other sources. So it's not like I'm counting everything from the beginning of college football history. I'm, of course, going through sources and then pulling those and then reviewing them. So the point system goes like this. So I took winning percentage just as being a point system unto itself. So if you've got a 700 winning percentage, you got 700 points. If you've got a 556 winning percentage, you got 556 points. I thought, okay, this is a great baseline, winning percentage. Okay. Then I took the poll points and simply made those a point system unto itself as well, and added those, just the number of poll points. I actually doubled the win percentage, because again, the poll points do not take into account teams that finished outside the top 25 that had argument to be in the top 25. Ralph, I thought you had a research team. This makes what you do even more impressive. Yeah, I spent a long time on this. Spent a long time on this. Now, I did the heavy lifting a year or two ago. So all I had to do was add to the numbers, but still, it takes hours and hours and hours and hours. And it really needs to be all verified. So I can't claim to 100% accuracy. I can claim to well over 99%. Well over 99%. And again, I'm just letting this video roll because then you're going to get to see a lot of these numbers in more palatable fashion, where you're not looking at this spreadsheet and you're when you hear the cliche about people's eyes crossing. I was experiencing that going through all this last week. Like, I'd be sitting in bed and you stare at a spreadsheet for that long and you're like, oh, and then you every so often, this didn't happen too many times, but a couple times I messed up. Like, I'm adding the wrong numbers in the wrong column. And then I'm like, oh Lord, I gotta just tear all that down. I gotta start over because I screwed up. Yes, Aaron, 99.75% pure. Yes. It's like at ESPN, we came up with a tabulation of operator accuracy, and it needed to be 6.9. Somebody came up with, we had some guy who was a lunatic, but he came up with 6.9s, I believe. 0.999999 needed to be the accuracy rate on operations. But you're looking at all-time winning percentage. And if for no other reason, thank you that there are no more ties in college football, because I got to get I got to get the calculator out anyway, but I got to keep it in my mind as I'm going from screen to screen. Okay, they had 12 ties, so that counts 6 wins and 6 losses. So I got to add those to the wins and losses and yeah. Ferris thinks it's amazing that there are so many ties in college football. I was actually surprised that there weren't more, because growing up, I remember ties all over the place. It seemed like everybody had 1 or 2 ties every year. I was surprised that there were, like, look at this. So if we go back, where are we? Well, so USC's been playing football for what? 120 years. They got 54 ties. And we've not had ties for the last roughly 25 years, 27 years. Yeah, I'm guessing that most of those ties occurred early. When we went through the winning percentages and the records post 1970, then you see a lot fewer ties compared to, what are the most ties? Well, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to guess it's 4. That would be my guess. Michigan went 9-0-3 in 1993. So Michigan fans will know what I'm talking about. 9-0-3. They won the Rose Bowl, beat Washington. So they finished undefeated, but they had 3 ties. No, 1992. I'm sorry. 1992. Yeah. Wait, I'm thrown off a little bit here. No, it had to be the year that they beat Washington in the Rose Bowl. 1993. They went 9-0-3. I think somebody else, I remember seeing a 5-4-3 record from somebody, but 3 is the most that I remember in the last 40, 45 years. A lot of 2s, a lot of 1s, of course. But it's funny that, yeah, Aaron says, hey, let's take our national title. There are teams losing games with national titles. Why can't Michigan take a national title that year? 9-0-3. Yeah, Ralph, see, that's what was confusing me, because, thank you. Thank you, Ferris, and both of you. That was what was confusing me was okay. Okay. I've got it straight in my head now. Gotcha. Okay. 1991, Michigan beat Ohio State. They finished with whatever record they had. I believe it was 10-1. Then they lost the Rose Bowl to Washington, 34-14. Then in 1992, see, okay, the reason I'm not going to explain why I was confused, but I was confused there juxtaposing the years because in 92, they tied Ohio State, and that was their third tie. They tied Illinois, Ohio State, and who was their other tie against? But when they tied Ohio State, so I figured, well, that was in 92. It had to be in 92 that they went 9-0-3. But then I thought, I was thinking that they lost the Rose Bowl. What was tripping me up is the year of the Rose Bowl date versus the season date. And I was thinking that they lost to Washington in 92. Well, they lost to him in the 92 Rose Bowl, not the 91 season. Okay, I got it square. I remember all the records now. I got them square in my head. That's why when I get in conversations on here, I stick to the season. And a lot of people correct me and say, Mark, that was the 87 Rose Bowl, not the 86 Rose Bowl. And I'll say, yes, but I'm just sticking to Ralph. I mentioned Illinois. Who's the other team they tied? I said Ohio State and Illinois. I remember those ties. Was it a non-conference game? Was it Notre Dame or Anyway, Iowa? Yeah. Yeah. Notre Dame. Yes. Okay. Notre Dame, Illinois, Ohio State. Thank you. But that's why I many times refer to bowl games that are technically the 1999 Rose Bowl. I refer to it as the 98 Rose Bowl just because I have to keep it in my head, the seasons. Like the 98 Rose Bowl is UCLA, Wisconsin to me, but they actually played on New Year's Day in 99. I think it was 34-14, but that's what yes. Oh, well, I think we're off by a point, but you might be right. I might be wrong on the 91 game. I think it was 34-14. So I hate to mess up your synergy there, but I think it was 34-14. Let's not jip Michigan a point there. All right. So again, back to the point system. So double the winning percentage in points. And then the AP poll points, those are just 1 point per. And then the bowl games, this is what I did. Bowl wins, I just added as 1 point per. Major bowl wins, I doubled. Did I double or triple? Major bowl wins, I doubled. Maybe I should do more than that. Anyway, major bowl wins, I doubled. And then our next category, in terms of points, conference championships, I tripled. So if you had 10 conference championships, you got 30 points. 30 conference championships, you got 90 points. And then I took the conference winning percentage, the championship winning percentage in the conference, and I included that as well. So if you finished, in USC's case, they won 36% of the conference championship, so they got 36 points. Washington only won like 16%, so they got 16 points. Maybe I should double those. National championships were 5 points each. USC's got 11 national championships. They get 55 points. Now, I got a complaint from someone who doesn't know the point system, so I understand the complaint. Got a complaint from somebody concerning the point system that They thought the individual awards and the individual All-Americans and the draft picks and all that was given too much weight. Well, they didn't know the point system. So they spoke too soon. So think about it this way. A national championship is worth 5 points. I am taking draft picks, award winners, Heismans, All-Americans, all that. And for each one, it's a half point. So a national championship is worth 10 times what any of those things are worth. If you have a number one pick in the NFL draft and you have a national championship, the national championship is worth 10 times more than the individual accomplishment. So again, this is not a science. Yes, Ralph. So that's totally understandable, Ralph. I get when I'm going through, okay, so-and-so's got this many consensus All-Americans and they've got this many Heisman Trophy winners and award winners and draft picks, that you would say, well, how much should that really count versus winning games and conference championships and major bowl games and national championships? Well, it shouldn't much. But if you take those numbers and you reduce them considerably, I think that again, this is just my perspective. This is one man's system that you just apply it in a small way. So all those draft picks get cut into half. So with USC, 531 draft picks, that's 266 points. And no, I'm not having them down to 265.5. Just I round them off, 266. USC's got 86 first round picks. They get 43 points. So there can always be criticism that this should be given more points, this should be given less points. What I would like to include is conference winning percentage. Conference winning percentage and conference winning percentage, strength of schedule. That would be a nightmare to calculate. So I'm not doing that. But if I could find something that has that calculated, that would be phenomenal. But those are really the two things that I would like to add or tweak, would be conference winning percentage and strength of schedule. All right. Looks like Aaron's calling me an idiot, so we're not going to go to that comment. All right. I do appreciate everyone being here at the Voice of College Football. Hopefully, we will have better turnouts when we go to conferences that people care about. So we've got the ACC coming up tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And again, your comments and questions are welcome. So I don't see any comments or questions per se. No comments or questions per se in the chat, and no calls. So we will leave it right here. Thanks for being here at the Voice of College Football. We will let the rest of the stats roll out. Join me at 6 p.m. Eastern Time again as we do the ACC. See you at 6.